Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about a hidden psychological trap, one that could be costing you real money. It's a glitch in our thinking, really, that makes us see the world, especially the world of investing, as way more successful than it actually is. All right, to really get this, let's start with a puzzle. Picture this. It's World War II. You're in command. Your bombers are coming back from missions and they are just riddled with bullet holes. But here's the real problem. A lot of them aren't coming back at all. And you've got to figure out how to protect them fast. So you look at the planes that did make it back home, and the damage pattern is pretty obvious. The wings, the tail, the main body all shot up. The military's plan? It seems logical, right? Just slap more armor where the planes are getting hit the most. Reinforce those weak spots. But is that really the right call? Is that the smartest move? And this is where the story gets really interesting. The military brings in this statistician, a guy named Abraham Wald. He looks at the very same data, the same bullet holes, and he sees something completely different. His conclusion was, well, it was brilliant and totally counterintuitive. Walt's big aha moment was realizing that the military was making a huge mistake. They were only looking at the survivors. I mean, think about it. The bullet holes on the planes that returned were, by definition, in places that weren't fatal. A plane could get hit there and still manage to fly home. The real story, the critical data, was in the deafening silence of the planes that never made it back. So here's his incredible insight. He said, the armor doesn't go where the bullet holes are. It goes where the bullet holes aren't. The empty spaces, the engines, the cockpit, those were the places where if a plane got hit, it was game over. It went down. Those were the actual critical weak spots. And this classic mistake, this logical flaw, it has a name. It's called survivorship bias. It's basically a mental shortcut we take where we focus on the winners, the success stories, the things that survived some kind of selection process. And in doing so, we completely overlook the failures, mostly because, well, they're invisible. They're not around to tell their story. Now, this whole bomber story is fascinating, but it's not just some old historical anecdote. This bias is a really powerful force that messes with our perception all the time. And it's especially dangerous in a place you might not even think about it, your investment portfolio. So how does this play out in the world of finance? Well, think of underperforming mutual funds as those bombers that never returned. When you go to look at fund performance charts, you're seeing that exact same incomplete picture. The funds that did poorly, they're just gone. What happens is these funds with bad performance are either quietly shut down or they get merged into a bigger, more successful fund. Either way, poof, their terrible track record gets wiped from the history books. It's effectively erased from the databases that we as investors rely on to make decisions. The evidence of failure just vanishes. And this creates a completely skewed reality, a funhouse mirror for anyone trying to pick a good investment. You end up looking at this universe of funds where it seems like everybody's a winner, simply because all the losers have been kicked off the field. So what you see is this curated list of survivors. And yeah, their performance looks great, but what you're not seeing is the massive graveyard of failed funds. That's the silent evidence. And by ignoring them, you're getting this dangerously rosy picture of how easy it is to make money in the market. And I want to be clear, we're not talking about some tiny little statistical quirk here. The financial impact of looking only at the winners is huge. It can be absolutely massive, and it directly messes with the expectations you set for your own money. Just how big a difference are we talking? Well, check this out. One analysis showed that if you only look at the surviving funds, the average return looks like a pretty sweet 11%. But when you bring back the data from all the funds that failed and disappeared, the real average return plummets to just 3%. That is a world of difference. This false optimism, it's so dangerous because it's driven by incomplete information. It can trick you into thinking that getting high returns is the norm, making you totally underestimate the very real risks of investing. You end up making decisions based on a version of history that's been heavily edited to show only the good parts. Okay, so usually this bias makes things look better than they really are. But here's a fascinating twist. It doesn't always work that way. Sometimes survivorship bias can actually make performance look worse. Let's take the Russell 2000 index. It tracks a bunch of small companies. Now, what happens when one of those small companies does incredibly well? It grows and grows until it's not a small company anymore. It graduates and gets kicked out of the index. So what's left behind? Well, you've got the underperformers and the companies that are still just plodding along. By constantly removing its biggest success stories, the index's overall performance can actually look weaker than the sum of its parts. So just understanding that this bias exists, that it's out there, that's a huge first step. But the next, and honestly the most important step, is learning how to actively protect yourself and your portfolio from it. All right, here are 3 things you can do. First, always ask yourself, what am I not seeing? What's the missing data here? Who failed that's not in this chart? Second, go look for the failures. Seriously, study them. Understanding why other funds or companies went belly up can teach you way more than just trying to copy the winners. And third, be a little skeptical of your data sources. Make sure they're comprehensive and aren't conveniently leaving out the losers. At the end of the day, this isn't just about investing. This bias is literally everywhere. Think about the career advice you get from super successful people. You're not hearing from the thousands who tried the same thing and failed, or the health tips from that one person who lived to be 100 while smoking every day. We are constantly surrounded by the stories of the survivors. So the real question I want to leave you with is this. What invisible failures are you not seeing in your own life? And how might they be quietly shaping your most important decisions?